After much anticipation, Thor Love and Thunder is officially here. And now that everybody can finally witness the film, we can all make up our minds. Is more of what was done with Thor Ragnarok in terms of the tone and the humor going to end up better here? Or do they maybe slightly overdo it and take away some of the grand stakes? Reviewers so far seem to be mixed on this entry in the MCU, and that honestly seems to be par for the course for Phase 4. So let's see what Thor Love and Thunder has to offer. So the first thing I want to get out of the way here is that I will not be talking about spoilers. I will have a spoiler-filled review dropping in about 12 to 14 hours, but for right now, no spoilers here. Obviously, I will have spoiler videos talking about the ending and everything coming out after this. But for right now, we're just talking about my general feelings on the film. First and foremost, I love Taika as a director. I love What We Do in the Shadows. I love the other projects he's done, specifically his most recent series as well on HBO, which is obviously centered around pirates and everything. And you know that if you've watched anything like Our Flag Means Death, or anything else that he's done, he's very much about style, and he's very much about representation. And the thing with Thor Love and Thunder is that it takes all of those things that he's known for and literally smashes them together. Do you want insane, rapid-fire action? Do you want emotion? Do you want things that just seem like they come out of nowhere? Do you want music that really sometimes seems out of place and sometimes makes sense? Do you want action that's over the top, but then followed up by a heartfelt scene that makes you go, oh man, I'm really feeling this? It's all here. It is a Taika movie through and through. And if you liked Thor Ragnarok, I think you will like this. Now, if you were somebody that's mixed on Thor Ragnarok because maybe you didn't like the approach to humor and what they were doing and how they handled some of the, bigger implications of world-ending threats and used them as a joke, well, you're probably going to hate this because this does that way more. And honestly, I can see why exactly critics are mixed on this one because it does handle a lot of things in this film like it's a joke. And again, that is Taika's signature. So you kind of have to know what you're getting and what to expect going into this. From a visual standpoint, I feel like it's a step down in many regards from the last Thor entry. There are some scenes that are absolutely stunning and look great. But then there's some scenes where honestly, it looks out of place, and I was actually questioning whether I'm seeing what I'm seeing because characters didn't look like they moved naturally for specific scenes. Some scenes obviously were very much affected by the pandemic, so you can tell that things are still not entirely finished or maybe where they would like them to be. Again, we saw this in Spider-Man No Way Home, for example, where the film literally ended up getting multiple patches and scenes that were added in after the release because time was pretty much going up against them. I have a feeling that we're seeing the same thing here. Okay, now that I'm done talking about Taika's influence and kind of the style and some of the problems visually, let's talk about the film itself and what it offers in terms of the MCU. So you're getting a lot in this film. Without spoiling anything, there is so much that happens that's important to the future of the MCU that it's going to be discussed for quite a while. From Jane Foster to Thor Odin's son, to Gore the God Butcher, to what happens with Zeus, to what happens with some of the other characters in this, it is all very much very important to everything going forward. Unfortunately, and this is probably my biggest criticism, again, many of these things don't have enough time for you to sit with them before they move on to something that feels a little bit more comedic and takes away some of the weight of the scene, or it takes a comedic scene and literally just whiplashes you over to a serious scene. And I think it's the pace of the movie and the short runtime that really does this film a lot of damage, in my opinion. By no means is the film terrible, but I think there is a lot of people that are going to look at this and say, this feels rushed. This needed another 30 minutes. There was clearly cut scenes that you're going to be able to pick out and go, wait a second, something feels like it's missing here. And I think that once enough time goes by and people rewatch this, they're going to be able to pick up on a couple of these pieces. And I honestly do believe that this is going to be one of the most divisive films in the MCU so far. Because, again, we are dealing with a franchise that's been all over the place. From the first Thor film, which seemed like it was almost trying to be so grounded and small scale that it didn't really have much impact on the actual MCU, to the second film, which had to be rushed and set up a lot of pieces for the Infinity Saga to actually pay off, to the third film where they just had a lot of fun and you could see they were just throwing things at the wall, sometimes literally in the film, and having a good time, to this film having to deal with the fallout of Avengers Endgame and handling the material in a comedic and serious way. It just really clashes with people's expectations. And certainly I can now see why people are saying this isn't the Thor for me. And if you're one of those people, I 100% see why you feel this way, and I believe your criticism is valid, because this isn't a Thor for everybody. I'm going to say it right now, I do not like Thor in this film, and I am talking about Thor Odin's son. I'm really not a fan, and every single appearance of his makes me less of a fan of his character. But again, I've talked about this in depth. I don't like Thor in the comics at all anyway, so it's just never a character that's appealed to me. And this film is another one that goes up against what I want from Thor, and I just do not like it. I don't know what it is, but clearly Thor just isn't meant for me. On the other side of things, the supporting cast I absolutely love. I knew I was going to love Jane Foster just because they were adapting her from the comics, and they do a pretty faithful job, and I think it works here, and I absolutely love Jane Foster's Thor. Now, at the same time, as much as I love what they do with Jane, on the other side of this, the other supporting characters more or less get left behind. There's not much for them to do, especially a character like Valkyrie, where if you would have said that she was going to be underused, I would have questioned what movie you were talking about, because they've been saying how she's going to be very important and prominent in this film. And maybe this is due to the fact that they've said that they've left so much on the cutting room floor that they can make multiple other films. I really feel the effects here. I felt like Valkyrie was just tossed aside, much like many of the other characters. So, again, you're going to have to see it for yourself to understand what I'm saying here. But to me, this is a film of two halves. One half is more Thor Ragnarok than anything before, almost going to a comedic level that matches Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at its worst, where I felt like I was watching an episode of Scooby-Doo or something. It just did not work with me. On the other side of that, just like Guardians 2, I feel like that this film has some great emotional weight to it that is unfortunately unbalanced with the comedic stuff that completely takes me out of it. And I just do not understand why they decided to take this approach to it. Overall, I don't like this film as much as I like Ragnarok, and all the things that make me excited for the future of the Thor franchise relate to everybody in this film that's not Thor Odin's son. And I don't know if that's going to be just me in the end, because I'm excited to see where everybody else goes next and what happens with everybody else, but Thor, I honestly don't care. And sure, once we talk about what comes next, I think I'm going to be a little bit more excited once we officially hear about what Thor 5 is going to be about, because Thor 4 seems like it is a middle chapter of a trilogy that's all set up for a conclusion that's going to be a major blow-off and something that sees a lot of insane things going on. And for that, I'm excited because, again, I think that they can nail that film if they focus more on the serious aspect of it. But something tells me that it's going to go the way that this film as well, and it could be another divisive film. I hope I'm wrong. I did enjoy this film, but so far, I definitely don't think it's cracking my top 20 in the MCU. And seeing that over the next week, Ms. Marvel and Thor Love and Thunder will officially be entry number 35 and number 36, it's not in the half that I would consider worth rewatching when I have free time or something that I'm super excited about. This film, while I do enjoy it, and I can't wait to rewatch it, and maybe rewatching it knowing what's coming, I'm going to enjoy it a little bit more, so far, this film leaves me a bit disappointed.